Hey guys, John Casey here. Sorry I couldn't go on my political page. I need a little bit more followers in order to do a live stream on that page. I haven't done any ads, so that's actually a big reason why I hardly have any followers over there. A lot of my normal followers I've actually gained naturally. I mean, actually, every follower I've gained naturally through just sharing content, talking to people, as I go around. So a lot of people just end up following my personal page, but essentially I just don't have enough followers right now to live stream the event. So that kind of sucks because I posted it all on there, but it is what it is. But I guess I could just start getting into it. So I think it's pretty insane actually that Thomas Massey right now has officially lost his campaign. I think that's a huge setback for the America First movement and everything that we really wanted Trump to be. I feel like we're not seeing that. We're seeing the complete opposite. And again, Trump's not backing all these people that were in his corner from the beginning, and is totally doing a 180. And then all of a sudden, all these people that were against him, or for him, and he's good with them, like Mark Levin, and the same thing with Ed Gallerin, or however you say his name, that ran against Thomas Massey. He was actually against Trump as well, and actually left the Republican Party, and then eventually came back. So that's kind of crazy. Going on from that, I met with Lori Rook today. I wasn't able to get too much of an answer from her on, Senate Bill 739 that makes it to where you have to sign that you are not going to stand against the state of Israel as a business here in Missouri in order to do business with the state. I think that's a completely un-American bill that we have. I don't know why you, as a business owner, cannot stand against a foreign nation. It doesn't make any sense at all. Why would Missouri have any concern with their business owners and their stance on a foreign nation in terms of doing business with the state? It doesn't make any sense. So that's a completely un-American bill. I want to be completely repealed if possible. And if we have no representatives that are actually going to go for that, then I'm planning on positioning myself in the near future to actually file a class action lawsuit against the state. I looked up everything I kind of had to do. Basically, I have to open up my own business and get a contract from the state, and then not sign that, and then be rejected to work, and then I would then have a case for something, but I'd have to line that all up, and I think that'd actually be worth my time doing something like that in the near future, because I think it's a bill that needs to be repealed for the American people and for Missourians in general, because I don't see what it actually serves. I don't think a foreign nation should have any sort of pull on what happens with business and commerce here in the state. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. So that's a huge thing. I want to be repealed. But at the same time, if I was to even be elected, I would prefer the state take action on its own. I don't want to supersede, what the states are doing if I don't have to. If we could just pressure, these state politicians, these state representatives, to actually make the right call and actually put Missourians first and repeal these hurtful acts across the board, I prefer we do something like that. But, I know laws like this are coming up in all these different states, even in Florida. I think Ron DeSantis has done a lot of good things, but he went over to Israel to go sign a free speech law, and that same free speech law, some lady had just posted on Facebook something about the mayor, and she had a police officer show up at her house, questioning her about it, her Facebook post, which is completely insane to me. We're not getting far off from what we're seeing over in Europe, where people are getting arrested over memes and stuff like that. I just feel like, we're seeing the weaponization, again, of politics, really. I mean, we're seeing an influx of influence from all these foreign nations, but we're not doing anything about it, you know. And then at the same time, you know, Eric Burleson, you know, I went and I found this guy. He was doing a private event, and I went and I found him at the high school. What is it? The Central High School. And I waited outside the library. He came out, and I finally got to ask him some questions, you know, about, you know, are you doing anything when it comes to immigration reform? You know, and he did not really give me any good answers on what he was doing. He said he wanted to really go after, you know, trying to do some sort of tax incentive or fix the tax incentives for foreign-born workers, which again is not tackling the issue. You know, you have these politicians that, you know, they talk about all these issues like the Somali fraud in Minnesota. You know, they talk about, oh, how that's a huge issue, but then we don't talk about the root cause of how that happened and how we can actually make a difference for the American people. You know, like how did all this huge Somali population show up in Minnesota? It didn't just get there on its own, right? It actually got there because in 1990, we had the Immigration Act of 1990, which made temporary protective status. You know, and then 1993 came by. That's when the Black Hawk Down incident happened. And that's what caused, bam, a huge influx of Somalians into America, was the temporary protected status that we gave them in 93 and making these huge enclaves that we currently have in Minnesota and different parts of the United States. You know, so they talk about all these things that, you know, oh, you know, there's this fraud, you know, what do we do? And then some of them say deport them. I mean, yeah, of course. But at the same time, how did they get here? You know, how did all these things start? How did all these things happen? And why isn't anyone doing anything about it? You know, and then I just feel like that's where it shows, you know, we have these politicians that are never really going to do anything that makes lasting and real effects for the American people. You know, just like repealing the Hart-Celler Act of 1965, something else we need to do as well. You know, we need to actually regulate and control who's coming in and from where. And that act actually eliminates that. It takes the guardrails off, makes it to where, you know, you have to take them in from anywhere. You know, I don't think that's the right call. And again, you have these politicians that talk about it here and there, but they don't actually address the root cause of the issue, these huge bills that, again, are causing all these things to happen. Again, temporary protective status, that's what happened with the Somali communities. And we just need to do something about it. And that's really my main thing. We don't have any politician standing up and saying, hey, I'm tired of all the foreign influence within our government. And I want mass deportations, and I want the American worker to be put first. You know, every single day I work these job sites, and, you know, a lot of these electricians, they don't make a lot of money, and that's why they can't keep guys, you know. And a lot of these electricians, they make anywhere from, you know, $16 to $18 an hour if you're a normal guy, maybe up to 20. And then if you're leading a job on these commercial electrician jobs, you know, the lead guy is making about $20 to $23 an hour. You know, and they're like, man, we cannot keep guys. And then I go to the Amazon facility getting built down the road. And then what's happening with that whole electrician company? 80% of them are now all on work visas, you know, because apparently they can't find workers. Yeah, certainly you can't find workers at that wage. You know, it's insane to me that, you know, they're doing all this work, a lot more work than me. As electricians, I'm a commercial fire alarm guy, and they're making significantly less money. I mean, why would you want to work there? Of course, you're going to have a mass exodus of workers, but instead of a normal supply and demand happening with the workforce, because of the supplementation of foreign-born workers, that is what's causing the exodus to happen even more and to upset it even more. I mean, and that's what we had in all these other industries that are now at 60% foreign-born workers. You know, you had this mass exodus of workers and this mass supplementation, and then it just keeps compounding, and then now, you know, you go to any commercial space that's getting done, And every single drywaller you're going to see is not going to be an American. Almost every single time you see a roofer, it's not going to be American. Almost every single time you see a flooring guy, it's not going to be American. And it's because of all of these laws that we have in place that help basically replace the American worker. Instead of making it to where we don't have that replacer, and there's actually a normal supply and demand taking place for the American worker. Because we are constantly supplementing, again, it upsets that supply and demand chain that we currently have. So it just turns everything upside down. So again, we're putting the American worker last when we have this mass influx of legal immigration that we need to change. And then again, the illegal immigration that recently happened that we're not doing enough reversing as well on. We're not having real mass deportations. And that is a huge reason why I started running. I mean, again, I work these job sites every single day, and I'm seeing it every single day. And I try to talk to, the sighting guys, and not the entire crew can't speak English. And I try to have something done and can't get done. They can't speak English. And then I got to try and talk to someone else that's a translator. And I'm like, what the heck? Or even an incident that happened on a huge commercial job that I had. I've talked about it before. I don't know if you guys remember, but a drywall guy that was not speaking any English accidentally turned on a water pipe, started flooding the floor where a commercial breaker was, where these guys were working, which is going to be live always because they're coming right from the street, right to the breaker. But the guy couldn't speak any English, and everyone was yelling at him to turn off the water pipe, and he was just looking down like, what's even going on? And eventually we had the head of commercial electrician climb up the outside of the scissor lift and turn off the water pipe. I mean, there was like 4 or 5 other guys that can tell you that did happen. A guy I know named Calvin was there, I think, or he at least can attest to it. He knows the guy who was there. But it's just like these crazy events that happen, that wouldn't necessarily take place if the guy could just speak English. Hey, turn off that water pipe, and then it compounds, and then the water's getting even higher, even more dangerous. Something could have happened there. Someone could have died, And again, it doesn't really, that's just a secondary factor. Again, it's the main thing is the fact that we are replacing the workers, and no one's doing anything about it. Eric Burleson's not doing anything about it. I try to talk to this guy in person. I try to find this guy in person. You can't find him. You can't talk to him. So I had to go inside the Central High School and wait for him outside the library. Thankfully, I was let in. And I waited outside the library for him. He gets out. He's super surprised I'm there at all. And he's got I think 3 cops with him and 4 of his guys, and everything's super tense. And I'm asking him what's going on. Hey, why aren't we seeing, mass immigration reform? I didn't say all this, but, I did say, hey, why are we not seeing immigration reform? Why are you not wanting to repeal the Hart-Celler Act of 1965 or the Immigration Act of 1990, these huge bills that are causing these huge issues that you talk about, and he talks about the Somali fraud every now and again. He says it's a problem, but again, we're not addressing the main issue of, how that started with the temporary protective status that happened from the Immigration Act of 1990. So it's we just never addressed, the main issue. But let's see if there's anyone that wants to say anything. No. Okay. Well, if you guys have any questions, I'd love to hear it. I'm really just riffing right now. I had to move the live over to my personal stream or my personal account because I don't have enough followers on the other account. Because I don't know if you guys were here earlier. I kind of discussed it, but since I'm grassroots completely, I'm doing a lot of posting on my personal page. So a lot of my followers are just automatically getting pulled from there. And the main reason why I actually made a political page is so I can do ads. But I haven't been doing any ads at all. And the last ad that I tried to do, it wouldn't let me. It said I couldn't do it. And I believe it's because I said something about Israel in there. Because, if you watch the whole thing, I really don't say anything much more divisive or much more than what you hear any other politician talking about. I said something about mass deportations, and that's pretty much it. So I don't know why that would have gotten taken down. So I have to edit that video again. I guess I'm going to censor it at the beginning and just have people go to, my page and see the full video at least and what I said. But apparently you cannot talk about Senate Bill 739 in an ad, or you can't talk about trying to repeal it or something like that. There's something going on with that whole thing where you can't put it in an ad. I don't really understand why. But that's really a lot of it. I don't know when you guys jumped in, but I've been kind of just riffing on everything, kind of why I've been wanting to run and why I feel like I have to. Because again, I feel like we don't have that voice that's actually trying to put up immigration reform, that's actually seeing what's going on in these job sites. And instead, he wants to do things like repealing prevailing wage, which I don't know if you guys know. Prevailing wage is what you would typically have on like a government job. And most of the time when I go on a government job, it seems like either 100% or dang near 100% of the workers are all American workers, which is kind of crazy because unlike, the normal job site, it seems like at any given time, it's going to be 50 to 60% of the workers are foreign-born workers, not American workers. So it's pretty crazy that he wants to repeal the prevailing wage that, helps me out, helps everyone on those jobs out too. And then also helps prevent, even more American jobs from being replaced. He wants to take that away. And I'm like, isn't that exactly what we don't need right now? We're not seeing immigration reform. These job sites are getting flooded. And then I turn and then you're trying to take prevailing wage away. Doesn't make any sense at all. It's like, can you just say you're at war with the American worker? Because I feel like that's all I'm getting from you, especially when you're not doing this. And then at the same time, you're pushing AI, you're pushing the AI data centers, and we're going to have a mass replacer of the American workforce on the white collar side as well with AI. And, all these call centers in the area, CSLLC, that's 300 people or more, they're just going to immediately lose jobs in the next 5 years or something like that. There's just going to be all of a sudden gone. Even in my fire alarm industry where I work right now, there's people in the local area that have already replaced their call centers with AI. So that's a massive amount of jobs in a blink of an eye that are just being replaced en masse. Just because it's a little bit easier, it's a little bit cheaper. Why not? It's 24 hours. So I see, okay, it makes sense for some things, but, there's this huge mass replacer that's going to be taking place, and there's no brakes on it, on what's going on with that at all. And I've also seen some articles and everything that's going on with, Oracle and Palantir and, the AI police state that people are afraid of right now and what they're trying to usher in. And I saw something about there's not currently a divide between the national security assets, like that they use for the Pentagon and stuff like that, and at the same time a divide with like personal accounts and them going through personal accounts and people's medical medical records and stuff like that, which is going to be a violation of HIPAA. So I actually want to take a dive into that later on and see what's going on with that. I just kind of briefly saw something on that. And a huge thing also, alpha-gal syndrome, I hear that's a huge thing going on right now. And Bill Gates talked about it, years ago, about how, they want to genetically modify ticks to make it to where people can't eat meat. And that's ridiculous. Why aren't we doing anything about that? Why aren't we doing anything about the things that we're hearing that came out of Operation Artichoke, a declassified CIA document saying that, basically they're systematically poisoning the American people. Why aren't we doing anything about that at all? So I feel like we definitely need more representatives that are going to be taking a stance against that and then trying to work against these things, like Bill Gates, the WHO, all these people who are trying to push these weird diseases forward to make it, again, to where people can't eat meat, or the poisoning of our water that's happening, the atrazine in the water and the things that are doing, to fetuses in the womb from all of these chemicals. It can affect them. But I think we definitely need to take a deep dive into that as well. But those are some huge topics. I don't know if you guys, your grass is blue, isn't it? Is that my steps? Man, did you start talking about that before I said something about it? That's crazy. Alpha Gal. Yeah, no, for sure. Trying to see all these. Yeah, Owen knows what's up. Marmik uses AI now. Exactly. That's just mass replacer of jobs that we're seeing in a blink of an eye. And then Caleb, yep, Caleb says he knows somebody with AlphaGal. Yeah, and it's going around. And then they're saying that they're putting tick boxes in certain areas. I did see something on a local page. Someone was like, "There's a box of ticks," and I guess that also means like a congregation of ticks at the same time. So people were saying, "Well, that's just a congregation of ticks," and then we're conflating it with a box when it was the other way around. So I was like, "Oh, that's kind of funny." But there's actual videos going around of people on their properties, and there's like boxes of ticks and ticks coming out of them, and I think that's pretty insane. Like, why is that happening? And again, after Bill Gates talks about it, after the WHO talks about it, how they can kind of use these ticks to make it to where people don't eat meat anymore, because that's a big global warming thing that they have, where they don't want people to eat meat, and that goes into the whole globalism thing as well. It's terrible for life. Safety. I've been trying to figure out what they are talking about. I love it. Okay. Brent always has something good to say, that guy. That guy is very well informed. He's also very concerned about the cloud seeding. That is his big thing. And I think a lot has come out about that as well. What is that called? Not cloud seeding. It's Brent knows. Brent's going to get me on that, but I was going to look that up. But basically, they're putting a lot of this stuff in the atmosphere and trying to change the weather. I cannot exactly remember what I got a box of invasive seeds 5 years ago from China. Okay. Yeah, dude. Oh, okay. Well, Chinese too. What's going on with the Chinese? Why are we massively importing 600,000 Chinese? That's something I talked about a couple months ago. Some of you guys have followed me for a while. We're supposed to be turning down all this immigration, and then all of a sudden we're bringing in 600,000 Chinese. The Chinese government that is actively working against us and is constantly trying to subvert us, and then constantly has guys bringing in diseases from their nation. Are these guys doing it on their own free will? No, I think the Chinese government is actually telling them to do it. And then I don't know if you guys saw the bomb that they found at some dam. There were some dam workers that were working at a dam. They were doing routine maintenance, I guess, where they were doing dives by it. And they found a bomb that was planted there. And they don't know who or what or why that got there. But, my whole thing is, illegal immigration is probably a big deal too with that. Who knows who could have came in, what sleeper cell could have came in, or, maybe even people were letting in legally, 600,000 Chinese students. I don't know if they're bringing in diseases that could harm the American people. Is it so far out of the realm of thought that it could be something like a bomb that they could plant eventually? It seems like a deadly disease that they're bringing in can be just as bad, But you guys still believe in planes? Weather modification. Yeah, Brent said weather modification, but there's another word for it. It's not hitting me right now, but that's totally fine. I don't know if there's any other serious issues you guys want to cover that maybe I'm not talking about, that maybe you guys are hearing somewhere else that is a big issue for you. But again, My huge thing is the foreign influence within our government, and yeah, the poisoning of the American people that's happening right now. And I apologize for wearing a hat too, guys. My hair is super messed up from wearing a hard hat all day, and I just got back from the Lori Rook thing. I don't know. I guess it got all windblown or something, but I couldn't fix it in time coming back here for the video. So I had to throw the hat on. But let me see, possibly part of the potential homeland attack. Oh, yeah, you're talking about the bomb. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Yeah, I don't know why we would want 600,000 Chinese students. Trump made a justification that it was to help keep some of these colleges open. I'd rather subsidize. I don't want to do this, but I would rather subsidize a college for whatever it needs to stay open, if that was the excuse, than import 600,000 Chinese students. It seems like, what's the payoff there? I don't really get it. It doesn't add up to me, especially when it comes to the campaign message and everything he's been saying. And I feel like we're not getting anything he's been saying, especially the mass deportations. The numbers are not there, especially when it comes to, just even comparing him to Obama. It honestly gets really sad when you compare it to Obama. And it's like, what are we doing right now? You look at the numbers and it's like, oh my gosh, this is like, it's really not happening. And the Congress on top of it is not making any reforms. They're not pushing anything forward. They did, Eric Burlison did vote yes on the SAVE Act. I love that he did that. That is something that needs to get pushed forward as well. But, I get that that's not happening. Well, that doesn't mean we need to not do any immigration reform bills, any immigration restriction bills. Why aren't we still pushing that forward? I feel like we should be shooting like a machine gun right now, all of these huge bills that could be happening, or at least pressuring the Senate. Oh my gosh, they got this forward, they got this through the House, and just piling it up at the Senate. If they're not getting the SAVE Act through, okay, man, and they're not repealing the Hart-Celler Act, man, we got that through the House. We're still not seeing that effort. It's like, oh man, we tried with the SAVE Act, so we're just kind of throwing up our hands on everything else and not trying at all when it comes to immigration restrictions. Okay, so we're not going to do it with Trump in the presidency. We have the Senate, we have the House. So are we never going to do it? Are we never going to fix these issues that we're talking about that are huge, that Trump ran on and that everyone was voting for like 10 seconds ago? Like, we were just there. Everybody was there. I feel like everyone saw the videos. Everyone said, yes, this is what I want to vote for. And then we get there, and then all of our politicians, where are they? Where are they now that we have all this control? Why haven't we seen any actual bills pushed forward from Eric Burlison on this? Any immigration restrictions? I just feel totally betrayed. I feel totally betrayed when I go to the job site, and that's what really forced me into running. Because I'm like, really? No one's going to do anything about this? And then I talk to the other people that are running, and no, Missy Hesketh, no, completely against it. Not going to do anything about it, for sure. Grayson Hunt, talk to that guy. No, not going to do anything about it. When I met him at his town hall, he had no stance at all on immigration. I asked him that straight out. You can watch the video again. He said he had no stance on it. And I'm like, okay, so like, no one's talking about this. No one's going to put the American worker first. So then I guess it has to be me, because I see it every day. I can't see it every day. And as a man, know that I don't have the representation at all. We're completely robbed of it. And I go home and nothing's being done. And what? I got to lie to myself. I can't say what's going on. And it's crazy, So I have to do something, And I started trying to basically go in and trying to do some investigative reporting on like, what's going on with these job sites, But that kind of ended up starting getting me in trouble. So I feel like this was actually a more healthier outlet, believe it or not, because that kind of started getting me into a spot where, I felt like I was going to get fired. But with this, not so much. I feel like it's a little bit better. Let's see what someone said. Pedophiles are getting worse. Mandatory castration, chop off, or chemical castration. Yeah, no, I was actually talking with someone at work today about this. I feel like, again, we have way too many soft-handed politicians that don't actually, just simply do things. Like they don't just, they have to overcomplicate things and wishy-wash things around to make it to where, no, we can't execute pedophiles, you know? Why is it, you know, I was at my last house. I have a rental property now, but a house I used to live at, the guy across the street raped a 13-year-old, and that was like maybe in 2003 or something, served his time, then he was out. This guy always caused problems, you know, and was constantly blaring music in the middle of the day, and me and him had several altercations. I, at one point, like, there was a pistol involved, and just a whole bunch of stuff happened. So, I don't know. I was like, all right, I'm moving the hell out of here. But to say the least, you know, I've had my fair share of issues with these guys. And then this guy also, when I was at work one time, my wife was getting the kids in the car, and he starts walking up to her and the kids and is like yelling at them or whatever. But again, why are we putting up with this scum of the earth? You know, that, you know, if we were to rewind, I feel like not so long ago we were just hanging these guys, you know. So if you're convicted of raping a child, I feel like the taxpayers should not pay more than however much money it takes you to walk you to the back, you know, into a concrete area and shoot you in the back of the head. I feel like, why are we overcomplicating that? You know, why are we not actually giving justice to the American people? I feel like we see these scenarios where, you know, these DAs and stuff like that are robbing the American people of justice, and it feels like, you know, if I got a expired tags that expired 2 days ago, I'm gonna get a ticket as soon as I get on the road, you know. But then any of these situations happen, like Irina Zarutska or something like that, you know, she gets stabbed, and then insanity plea, you know, the guy gets out, you know. But then the normal guy, you know, he's going about his business. Maybe it's a self-defense thing even, and he's getting 10, 15 years. And it's like, what is going on? How is everything so upside down? And how is it that basically all these predators were letting out and able to reoffend? It's insane to me. So we need to have, mass reform. I feel like on our legal system, what's going on there, holding these judges accountable, you know, for letting these repeat offenders out, trying to take away. I think we should actually take away the insanity plea. That should be something we completely take away. It's been completely abused, and it basically makes no sense. I don't know if any of you guys have an argument for the insanity plea. I'd love to hear it. But from what I've seen, it's been completely abused. All these huge serial offenders are basically let out, and no justice is actually carried out. And that cannot happen, you know. What is that called? It's a certain kind of terrorism. But I'll get it. Or publicly, make them suffer, no testosterone. Okay. One of the biggest issues right now is the massive drug problem. Mainly amphetamine abuse. It has destroyed most of the area, and it really pains me to see it be so pervasive. Hang am I? Okay, yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. I think that's something that's been huge in the area for a long time. In the Southwest Missouri area, that's something you've always heard about, especially meth, for a long time. You know, you hear about that. What is going on with that? I feel like Southwest Missouri should be one of those places you hear about is locked in on crime, you know, and then even the Springfield crime statistics are kind of crazy. Yeah, so I'd love to look into more on how we can fix that and actually do what we need to do for the American people when it comes to the amphetamine problems. I know when it comes to the bigger cities, it's an issue of like DAs and them letting people out and reoffenders just not being prosecuted properly. You know, are we having that same issue here? I'm not sure. I've not seen too many particular cases. I've seen them more in like St. Louis, Kansas City, stuff like that. The judges and DAs are the problem. Okay, so he's saying the same thing I'm saying. Someone telling them to go light on all our DAs, judges. No, I definitely agree. I mean, I think there's a huge change that happened after George Floyd, of course. So then, like, automatically, all these judges, in some way, in some ways, have just kowtowed to that and changed. And the Irina Zarutska area judge, same deal. I think she had I think there was 4 different high profile cases that happened in that same judge's district, and she was just letting them out. Insanity plea, letting them out, no, something needs to happen there. Something needs to happen there for sure. We need to hold these judges accountable, these DAs accountable. And I don't know why we're not seeing that through the executive branch as well, it's not Pam Bondi now, but the new attorney general. Why aren't we using our attorney general to go after these guys and trying to hold them accountable? I mean, isn't that why we got the Trump administration in there? The only problem is that they still have 70% of that offense rate with the chemical castration. Yeah, no, yeah, right? Yeah, no. So exactly, yeah, the rate thing. Yeah, no, exactly. The reoffending rate is crazy. And it's like, why are we putting up with it? And what mercy are we having for the American people? We're not. We're depriving the American people of justice. I feel like when we're not putting these horrible offenders to death, that if we were to rewind maybe 100 years ago, they'd be hung, so I don't know what's going on with that. And me saying that, I know is going to be this. I know last time I made a comment like that, and it shadow banned my account. So we'll see if I get shadow banned again, guys, for just now saying that comment. Great. Yeah, but I went back onto my Facebook profile, and I didn't even realize it was suppressing all of my content for 2 months because of a comment I made about this exact same thing about child predators. And I have a very absolute and final solution for those guys for sure. And Facebook doesn't like it, so it immediately went to trying to suppress my content. So that was not good. So hopefully that doesn't happen again. I'll try and keep an eye on that. But we'll see what happens. Because Missouri has, okay, let's see what Brent said. Brent usually has really great takes. Because Missouri has made it into a source of revenue, they don't go after the dealer, only the users. Bust one dealer, make nothing. Keep busting users, make millions. Sorry, it's kind of hard to read with the normal background on there. Nothing much is person living here have cooking, amphetamines, and a judge problem. Okay. The Soros judges, the governor got her out here, got over there. Okay, got her out of there. Cool beans. Yeah, no, yeah, if we have any Soros judges, yeah, get them out. Soros DAs, get them out. Jeez. Yeah, I don't know if you guys heard about what's going on over in Forsyth at all. The Forsyth mayor, I'm getting a little bit of details here and there, but the Forsyth mayor is currently being impeached. I guess there's a huge Democrat force against her down there. And that's where Missy Hesketh, the other lady that's running for the same district, originally was a mayor at as well. So that's kind of weird. Kind of a huge conflict of interest there on what may be going on. But I'm going to do more investigating on that. She seems like a good lady. She seems like her heart's in the right place. And, I look forward to hearing more from her and really what's going on with that whole story. I think I'm going to stand by her. She seems like she's telling the truth on what's going on. And she's basically just trying to uncover, some of the water infrastructure and stuff that wasn't done right is what I'm hearing. And she was just asking simple questions. And now all of a sudden she has all these people coming after her. So I really want to hear from her on what's going on, especially since it's basically Missy Hesketh's old friends over there, all their Democrat buddies over there, what's going on, and then this same lady actually asked Eric Burlison for help and he has not said a single word about it, which is crazy to me. He has a huge megaphone where he could talk to the constituents in the area, say, hey, I don't know what's going on, or I think this is what's going on. We have this Republican lady down there. She's a good Christian lady. She seems like she's doing everything right. And there's these people coming after her for just asking simple questions and trying to, and I don't think that's right. Start there, right? I haven't heard anything from him. So I feel like, I went and I found Eric Burlison. I asked him these questions, and I said, these are huge issues for me, and I'm running against them. These are the huge issues I'm bringing up in front of him, and they're never issues he ever brings up. They're never issues he ever says anything about. He always avoids them. And then at the same time, this lady, she went and she found him at one of these other meeting things that were going on that was private, and she talked to him. And he basically said, you might as well just go up the food chain within the state and try to see if someone will help you in there. But he wasn't going to do anything about it. So that's crazy to me. We need to stand with, either Republican representatives in the state, especially if they're doing their job, and they're basically just being hassled for trying to do their job, or they're getting impeached because they're just asking questions. And maybe they're uncovering fraud themselves, So I definitely want to see what's going on there. But hopefully we can get an interview here soon. So I'm kind of doing like some personal interviews and investigations here and there, and trying to really get the ball going on, what's going on. I want to try and give everyone a good view on, the landscape politically of even the Republicans, or what's going on in the area. And I feel like you don't get anything from the news sites. Have you heard anything about the Forsyth thing at all? No. I mean, it's kind of odd to me, but let me see what's going on here. We need to lighten up regulations on being able to sue judges for playing catch and release, because you cannot sue them now. Yeah, no, I think that's 100% right. What do you think about data centers? Proposed ones in Greene County. So far, I don't like any of the data centers that I've been seeing. I don't like the mass influx of data centers. I know people say that, we've had data centers since 1944, we've had them for a long time. That might be the case, but we haven't had a mass influx all of a sudden. Trump just signed the executive order taking all the regulations off, and now all of a sudden we have a whole bunch of them coming in. And there's no guardrails on it. And then at the same time, Trump signs another executive order, which if elected into Congress, I also want to repeal. I want to repeal Trump's executive order, making it to where states cannot regulate AI. I think that's crazy. Why are we trying to take the states' rights away? I feel like as conservatives, we should be doing the opposite of that. And all of a sudden we're going, okay, states' rights, well, let's go ahead and suck those up. That's not a thing anymore. When it comes to AI, it's crazy, ludicrous. So yeah, I want to repeal that. I want to challenge that. And yeah, no, I don't like the mass influx of data centers that we're currently having, and the eminent domain that they qualify constantly when it comes to, where they're building stuff, and the power that they're getting in, and the homes that are being displaced, and the water that's needed for them at the same time. I feel like that's intentionally being put on, to pressure the American people. I feel like, this is all within the same thing. Why is the Strait of Hormuz closed? That's really tightening things with the economy. That's really driving inflation up at the same time. Well, then at the same time, you get the Alpha-Gal thing going on. You got the hantavirus thing going on. And, it's just mass hysteria they're trying to drum up. And then they're trying to do the UFO thing right now. And, I think it's really to try and have mass confusion, and then also mass control, So I think really what the data centers do, and they serve a purpose, is to, limit the resources that we have, and to make it to where, we're even more, stricter, and we, even water's even more money. And you got these places that I posted an article, Matt Walsh was talking about it, where I guess some power company, it's funny enough, it's Liberty Power Company, the same I don't know if it's the same one, but we have a power company out here called Liberty as well. It's owned in Canada. Huge thing. I can talk to you guys about it in a little bit, how I stand against that. And I actually want to make it to where, okay, we'll talk about it. Essentially, yeah, I hate getting off into the tangents, but it's all slightly connected because, like, you know, with the Liberty Utilities thing, them being owned in Canada, I want to push forward the same act that was pushed previously, but failed. It's called the Keep the Lights at Home Act, and I also want that extended to, you know, farmland, private homes, and stuff like that. I think it should only be American owned. There should not be, you know, Chinese owned farmland. There should not be Chinese owned private houses and stuff like that. And there should not be, you know, foreign owned infrastructure within America. I think that's absolutely ridiculous, and we're setting ourselves up for failure, essentially. But going back to the Liberty thing, you know, that whole Matt Walsh article really highlighted that basically they were making it to where all their power was being diverted to this AI data center, and then all of these homes basically, in result of that, don't have normal power. Now they're on, I guess it's called like the open market. So they have to compete in the open market, and they have to pay, I guess, even more money than they typically would have, which I didn't even know you could do. So it's kind of wild. But let's see what anyone else said. Look, Massey's cooked. Yep. I did talk about that earlier. Yeah, that's so unfortunate. I think that's horrible. You know, he's an America First candidate, and he is Israel critical, which we do need right now. And it's incredibly disappointing that he was taken out. You know, I don't know if he'd be willing. I know it's kind of a huge ask. It's probably impossible, but I would love to have him help on the campaign, to have, you know, his help and his wisdom on what's been going on the inside. You know, I'd love to talk to him and see what we can do there. But I doubt he's going to want to do anything, but we'll see. What do you think about data centers? We talked about that. You hear about 4 city council that got impeached, I believe, that has the town fought back and try. Yeah, I did hear about that. Yeah, no, I did hear about the people getting impeached because of the AI data center. I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that we're fighting back, and we're doing something about it as Americans. And I think this AI data center, you know, will help wake people up a little bit more too, you know, of what's going on massively in the area and, you know, around the world. Something's behind these data centers. The math doesn't, let me see. It's so hard to read these because of the background. Math doesn't add up, and the rate of the growth need don't match for the massive data processing we need. I agree. Okay. I feel like life is so crazy that it never feels. Yeah, it does feel like the world is ending, like they're trying to make it feel like the world is ending. But, you know, I feel like, again, that's how they want us to feel. You know, I feel like when it comes to the people who are seeking the truth is so shocking, you know, and they want you to feel like, you know, it's all doom and gloom, the world is ending, you know, and they want you to have no hope, where, you know, you're actually supposed to turn that around, and you're supposed to turn that into hope. You know, and we're supposed to rely on Jesus Christ and have no fear. And that's what we really need to rely on as Americans, is to put our faith in Jesus Christ and to have no fear, to expose the truth, whatever it is, and to fight for the truth, whatever it is, you know, no matter how scary it is, you know, even if aliens exist, you know, all this stuff, you know. But, yeah, I think it's meant to scare us, essentially. Another problem I've had on my mind is the massive omnibus bills. Yeah, no, I agree. Pack as much possible on in one bill and sneak the BS on the American public. The amount of time being spent on these bills. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. The omnibus bills are totally crazy. I mean, that's how they're constantly basically blackmailing different people of Congress through these. You know, they do these omnibus bills and they go, oh, it's for this. And then it has this crazy transgender thing in it. And you're like, of course I'm not going to vote for that. And then then they turn around and they go, well, you didn't want to vote for, stricter borders, but then it had the transgender stuff in it. And you're like, no, I didn't want the transgender stuff. Like, can we be real about it? So yeah, no, I think we should have single issue bills, not huge omnibus bills for that reason. And I know they use it for negotiations and stuff, but when you break it down to a single issue bill, I feel like it's easier to call out, these different politicians on why they're against these certain things, because they could say, oh, it's the 14th thing in there. That's what I'm against, instead of going, okay, well, here's the don't let illegals vote in the election act. And it's literally just that. That's it. And that's it, Let's refute why that wouldn't be a good idea. And then they'd have to go against it. That's why you'd want a single issue bill. So then they'd go, okay, no, it's not the 14th thing in it that you have an issue with. It's just the one thing, because it's the one thing we're voting on. So no, I definitely agree with having the single issue bills. I think that's huge, especially we could use that as a huge tool for calling out the people that are going to be, again, tools of the left and tools of the right, basically the GOP indoctrinated that will just push the dogma forward, whatever it's going to be. And that's a big way that they can do it, and a big way that they can hide it. And a big way that they can hide from not doing the America First things. If we're saying like, hey, we want to repeal the Hart-Celler Act of 1965, that's all we're doing. That's all this bill is, and if you're going to come out against it, you're only coming out against that, and that's it. And you'd have to make a case as to why that is. And a lot of these Republicans that say the Republicans would basically just out themselves, as we systematically put these America First bills forward that are so obvious, that we should have already been doing anyway. Like, I don't know why Congress still hasn't been doing it, but like, as soon as there's a single issue bill and we're going, hey, the Immigration Act of 1990, it made temporary protective status, it made the H-2Bs and the work visas and what have you. It pushed all these huge things forward that is all these things we're talking about. Do you want to stop that? I mean, and then they have to say yes or no. And then that's how we call them out. We line out, okay, you are clearly just going to be a uniparty turd and you're not going to actually make any real change. That's what we need to do. So no, I couldn't agree more. Not to be super winded about it, but I was just trying to lay that out. Does it ever feel like crazy? Them using water makes no sense. We use coolant and sealed system in a car. Keeps it colder in the water. Yeah. I have heard that. I've heard it all stays in the same loop, but then, you're still seeing the numbers on it about the water. So how is that, How is that at all? I don't get it. Another problem I've had on my mind is we talked about that. I love that. Yeah, I've never understood that we had modern cooling systems that don't burn. Yeah. Remember Liberty charged people in Republic 800 plus in some cases. Imagine what it could be in some power pulled from the grid. Yeah, no, exactly. And that's really the protections that we're not seeing for the American people. I mean, I know that Trump's executive order was trying to stop that, but the things we currently have in Missouri kind of, I feel like, made the perfect storm to take advantage of the Missouri taxpayer and the Missouri consumer. I don't know if you guys saw some of the recent legislation that was pushed forward in the last, I think, 2 years, making it to where like all future infrastructure is basically, paid by the consumer beforehand. Like it's like projections, and that just allows like basically again these shady billing practices that we've been seeing where, I feel like we're not playing with real numbers anymore. We're not playing with even the power I just used. You're talking about all these made up freaking numbers that aren't really even real right now that you're billing me off of, or I think they take some averages and then they try to bill you off of a percentage, in some areas. And it's like, what is going on? Can we just bill me with what I'm using and stop trying to do all this terminology, so that's dumb, So I that's really a state ran thing, but if I can do anything about that, I'd love to do something about that because it's the billing practices that we currently have in Missouri are not right. So I think that's going to be, again, pressuring, state representatives for the commission that actually deals with that and says, yes, that the Public Service Commission that says, yes, you can charge for that. No, you can't charge for that for these power companies. That's a huge issue. But again, I think I will definitely put pressure on it as a representative, but to have direct effect, like a law to change and stuff like that, I think that's going to be mostly a state representative to deal with that. But I will definitely, try to pressure them to make that happen. But yep, sounds good. I love it. All right. I don't know if anyone has any more questions. We kind of just talked about everything. We ran through just about everything. We went on a spree for sure on just about everything you guys wanted to talk about. I'll stay on here for a little bit longer, just to see if anyone pops on and has a question. I know I had a lot of people before asking questions, and what up, Hunter? Hey, if you have any questions, feel free to say something, brother. I was planning on hopping off here pretty soon. Any huge issues you guys are seeing? Yeah, the Thomas Massey thing is super dumb. Trump going against them, again, just highlights, how much things have changed, and how much I feel like the GOP has been poisoned. And, I feel like how much Trump has turned on his base at the same time. It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't add up. Well, it does add up, but it just doesn't make any sense why it's completely different from 2016. Why he would have changed his mind, what would have happened. I don't know if it's the Epstein files. And I feel like there's nothing in the Epstein files with him in particular, but I don't know what they have on him or what's going on as to why the Israelis are so in control of the national and state governments and the laws that are being passed so recently. Tyson plant down the road, shut down. I have been hearing stuff about the Tyson plant as well in recent past. Tyson plant down the road shut down. All of the people that they shipped in to run it. 6% position down. Do you have to support small businesses when events like that happen? We're trying to fix a problem that shouldn't have been a problem in the first place and has basically metastasized and expanded to where it takes over, big portions of industries. What protections do we have for that? I don't currently have a whole bunch. I know Trump really outlined a lot of it when it comes to the what is it called? The America First labor policy, really trying to revamp a lot of these industries that we've seen the mass replacer in. His whole thing was basically manufacturing, which, the Tyson plant has a little bit to do with that. But he was trying to revamp those industries through that bill and job training programs and stuff like that. But when it comes to more manual labor, I feel like it's not really the same thing. So I feel like there needs to be a transition for sure. I'd like to just cut it off and say, hey, we're going to not do it at all. I think there needs to be a final line to that, of course. There can't be this thing where we string it along for 10, 20 years and we never come off of it like we have been doing. So that's the hard part where I feel like, there might be some issues for sure like that happening, the Tyson plant. But at the same time, what kind of prolonged suffering are we putting the American people through? Again, through this huge supplementation of the foreign-born workforce, and it's just metastasizing and multiplying on top of itself, causing even more of a mass exodus from these industries. I mean, I guess you could hem haw about, it'll cause this problem, it'll cause that problem, but there's a huge problem going on right now. I think, if we were to go, hey, we're going to completely stop everything, we're going to have a moratorium on immigration, and we're just going to try and stop the bleeding. Will there be issues? 100%. I think there's going to be issues, but what issues are we currently having with the Iran war? What kind of inflation are we currently having with the Iran war at the same time? What are the American people going through right now? I mean, and that was something that was completely unpopular. That is something that the American people, I feel like, really didn't vote for. I didn't vote for. Trump said no new wars. He said many times before. I mean, I guess I've been seeing more interviews towards the end, or I didn't see it at the time, where he was, I guess, being more pro-Iran war. But many times before that, he said he was completely against it. So, I mean, the current administration and our current representatives, I feel like, are not serving us and are not making the right sacrifices for the American people. And I feel like, if something like that was to happen, and, I think that might be a necessary casualty in some cases, I mean, who's at fault there? The Tyson plant is definitely at fault there for employing so many illegal workers, of course. And it sucks that town is suffering because of it, but at some point there has to be a stop to it. We can't, again, try to go, well, maybe we don't want to have everybody hurt. I mean, it's just like you try to solve every problem. That's when you get into the weeds of maybe we don't solve any problems. Does that make any sense? I don't want to get into a spot where we're not solving any problems because we're trying to solve every problem. So if we were to say, hey, we're going to have a moratorium on immigration entirely, we're going to stop the huge influx of foreign-born workers, there's definitely going to be some pain with that. But at the same time, I feel like that needs to happen. That's kind of what we voted for. Yep, it's been going on for long. For there not to be ramifications. Yeah, so I'm glad you kind of agree with me. Yeah, I feel like there needs to be ramifications. There's got to be ramifications. And would I like to make it to where, everything's perfect and there's no issues? Yeah, 100%. Do I have every answer to that? No, I don't think anyone does. And I think being too afraid to make these decisions is kind of what got us into these problems that we're in now. Or, we go, oh, we got to try and solve every single problem that comes up with that. And then again, not solving the base issue because of that, and then we're going, oh, okay, well, maybe we walk this out 10 years and then, they just stop kind of using the foreign-born workers. Well, and then what? We just get a Democrat in and then it just kind of gets reversed halfway through or what have you, that we're it's kind of what we experienced in the past, so I think something drastic needs to happen. I think we do need to have a moratorium on immigration. And we need to do away with a lot of the work visa programs that we've been seeing. And we need to have mass deportations. And there are going to be huge ramifications from that. There's going to be inflation from that. But I feel like, there's so much benefit on the other side of that as well. When it comes to the mass deportations and all these things, there's going to be a natural increase of wages as well. There's going to be a natural drop of housing costs that you're going to see across America. So, that is something that I feel like is going to be worth the sacrifice. That is something that would also more than likely cause a revival instead of this current sacrifice we're going through right now with the Iran war that I feel like a lot of people didn't vote for. That's causing a lot of these same issues, a lot of the same inflation that we would have been seeing, but instead we're doing it for, Israel. We're doing another war for Israel, and I feel like we're doing nothing for the American people. Again, no mass deportations, no immigration reform, no immigration restrictions, all these things that, yes, would have caused a ripple effect and would have had an inflationary cost, but with at least a benefit on the other side. So that's kind of where I'm at, that's a huge deal for me, and I feel like it solves so many issues. There's issues that are caused by it, but there's just a huge amount of benefit. And then at the same time with the mass deportations, I mean, we at least get to try and help who we know is here in the United States. I mean, we again, like the bomb I was talking about before that was planted. No one knows who planted that over by a dam, and could have very easily been people that came in illegally and are hiding still. Foreign agents that are sleeper cells. I don't know, but that at least helps protect the homeland, and, it puts Americans first. And I feel like it's just a simple answer. We just need to start having simpler answers and simpler solutions, and trying to stop trying to hem-haw over trying to fix every little thing, and actually just try to just pull triggers and try to fix these huge issues that are going on. And these huge bills that are making it happen, like the Hart-Celler Act of 1965, the Immigration Act of 1990, that cause a lot of these huge issues. Start at the root and work your way out. Yep, exactly, 100%, 100%. And unfortunately, we have representatives that want to do it the opposite way, because again, I feel like a lot of these politicians just want something to run on. I mean. Again, Eric Burlison talked about, the Somali fraud, but again, the only reason why there's Somalians in Minnesota is because the Immigration Act of 1990 and the temporary protective status it made. And then in 1993, we granted Somalia temporary protective status and then started the mass importation. So, yeah, I mean, it's just like simple problems with simple solutions, and that's me. And I don't know why we're not seeing more of that. And I definitely need it on the job site. We all need it on the job site. The blue-collar workers see it. I don't know if you guys know, I went to the pipe fitter union here locally. I met with the head union rep, and he is not for immigration restrictions, was not happy what I had to say at all, especially when it came to, I was mentioning repealing or taking away ITIN. So another point of that is having transparency, the thing the government can't sit here and cover up everything. No, I agree. We shouldn't cover up anything. No, I agree. No, we should be very transparent. I mean, I feel like the government is super secret, and, even the politicians that we have, I feel like they have all these extra privileges and freedoms where it should be kind of the inverse. I mean, being a representative should, again, be serving the people, be working for the people, and, shouldn't be having things like insider trading. Should be no insider trading, no privileges that are outside the normal man, that we've been seeing for a long time. And then, again, the PAC money that we're seeing, and we should take that away. We should register AIPAC as a foreign lobby too, but that's a whole other thing that kind of goes into something else. But so another point, having a transparency on these things, the government can't share. Cool. All right, guys. So that's pretty much it for me. I know we kind of just jumped through a bunch of stuff. I appreciate you all for listening. You guys have a blessed day, okay? Thank you so much. Talk to you later.